Here's the truth. We do have too much inflation. And we do have too much crime. COVID did weird things to people all over the country. But all this tough talk doesn't amount to a hill of beans that the Republicans are making.
Part of a closing argument to suburban voters, which could have a major impact on the balance of power. Sandra?
Okay, Mike Emanuel in Washington for us. Mike, thanks. John?
Sure. All right, Sandra, let's bring in Fox News contributor and former senior Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway. I know you love polls, Kellyanne. We got lots of them for you today. Let's put the numbers from the Wall Street Journal poll up on the screen. White suburban women and how they have shifted. They were favoring the Democrats by 12 points in August, now favoring Republicans by 15. That is a net shift of 27 points, which is huge. As Mike was pointing out, this slice of the electorate is 20% of voters. What's moving these women this way?
Yes. It's truly remarkable, John. As you'll recall, in 2020, COVID had them very afraid, rightly so, and it was their top issue. Now it's inflation and it's crime, and a little bit of education, too. There's still a hangover there among many parents, not understanding why the schools aren't as worried as the parents are about these test scores declining, about lost learning, about emotional and mental challenges that the kids themselves are saying that they face. And yet you have people out there talking about abortion and January 6th and climate change and Trump, Trump, Trump. So I don't think these are very complicated topics to understand why women have shifted. What confounds me completely is how the Democrats never responded to those concerns. They truly had all summer to do it. And yes, for most of the summer, beginning in late June, with the Dobbs decision, John, you did have an uptick in the number of women who registered to vote, donations to Planned Parenthood, and the number of voters who said abortion would be central to their vote. Now, that still is very important to many people, but it has faded in intensity, and it is just being swarmed by rising cost and rising crime. Also, Google searches, something else that all of us should look at. The Google searches for abortion really gave way starting in September and October to Google searches about economy and crime. I have an op-ed up on foxnews.com, and it talks about how women are seeing red and are in the red and are going to vote red. It was done right before the Wall Street Journal poll came out, but the fundamentals are there. And I think trotting out the Clintons and even President Obama to sort of peddle a little bit of rage and anger is not the way to attract women who they like to build consensus. They don't like the extremes, and they like somebody who doesn't talk about the problems but offers solutions.
Well, we'll talk about Hillary Clinton in just a second, but first of all, I want to put this finding from the Wall Street Journal up here. Again, this is white suburban women. When asked if they believe the economy is in recession, 54% of them said yes. That's an increase of 11 points since August. Is the economy going in the wrong direction? 74% said yes. That's an increase of 16 points since August. Yet tonight, we have the president. He's going to be at Union Station just off of Capitol Hill, where you can't find a member of Congress to save your life. They're all out there on the campaign trail. And he'll be talking about threats to democracy. I mean, they keep barking up the same tree here, whereas the electorate seems to be like, tell me about inflation. Tell me about how I can afford to put food on the table and gas in my car.
You know, John, what you say is completely true. It benefits the Republican Party and the excellent candidates that have been recruited this cycle, and really what Kevin McCarthy and Ronna McDaniel and Donald Trump and others have been able to do, which is fund these candidates, stump for them, suss out who the best candidates may be in the general election, and support them, as has the McConnell team. I say this to you because these races that have been moved just very recently into toss-up or lean instead of solid D, they went double digits for Joe Biden 2 short years ago. And now these committees are investing six figures in them. And the reason is because a lot of the Hispanic voters in those districts and a lot of the female voters in those districts are showing a shift over. But when you're not paying attention to the polls, you're not paying attention to the will of the people. I don't understand what this White House is thinking by talking about threats to democracy. And by the way, no party owns threats to democracy. People in this country are very concerned about democracy for any number of reasons, but they don't wake up every morning the way Joe Biden does and see January 6th on their calendar.
You know, Kellyanne, on that point, and bringing in Hillary Clinton, she seems to think that Republicans are a threat to democracy and that it's low information voters who may swing the tide in favor of the Republicans. Listen to what she said here.
I think with all of the noise that we've got in this election season, I don't think people are able to really grasp that. But more importantly, I'm not sure they really understand the threats to their way of life.
I'm not sure they really understand. She's going after voters again. Is this deplorables 2.0? 30 seconds.
Yes, it is. And John, she said irredeemable and deplorable when she was on her best behavior, trying to get people's votes. Imagine how she really feels about folks and what she's saying unleashed and of course, unelected to the presidency. Also, she has an odd message in contrast to her husband. I saw Bill Clinton in your clip say, yes, we have too much inflation. Yes, we have too much crime. She actually is denying both, as are most Democrats out there in the stump. She said in another clip in that Joy Reid interview yesterday that the Republicans are out there, pretending crime's a big issue, as did Kathy Hochul. Nobody's pretending anything. They know what they see, not what you, Hillary, say. And we're seeing people pushed on subway tracks. We're seeing people be victim. And just final point, John, Gallup came out with a poll statistic recently. 56% of Americans say that crime in their area is worse than it was a year ago. So this is not some distant, remote proposition. People feel unsafe and insecure in their own places of work, their places of worship, their own homes, and their own communities. You can't talk your way out of that. You must respond to it. And frankly, the Republicans have done a good job responding to it. They've had great message discipline this time.
Candidates ignore these issues at their own peril. Kellyanne, it was great to get your analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.